Hello everybody, welcome to the channel if you're new and welcome back to the channel if you're returning. In today's video we are discussing the 1969 World Chess Championship match. Now, if you would like to request a video, my email is in the description. This is a requested video. So, we have Tigran Petrosian, the defending World Chess Champion, versus Boris Spassky. This was played in Moscow, Soviet Union from the dates of April 14th to June 7th. This is a rematch of the 66 World Chess Championship, in which Petrosian would maintain his title. In the result of a 12-12 tie, Petrosian will keep the title, just to be aware of the rules. Petrosian at this time is 39 years old, while Spassky, 7 years younger, is at 32. Here's an image from the match. Spassky and his way through the candidate cycle would beat players such as Efim Geller, Bent Larsen, and Viktor Korchnoi in the finals. We have Spassky here, and we have his road through the candidates. As you can see, there are strong players here, such as Grigorich, Samuel Reshevsky, Mikhail Dahl, and Efim Geller, of course. Petrosian, the incumbent champion, would be facing his opponent again after beating him up 12.5, 11.5 in a very close World Chess Championship the last time around. So, who will be the title? Who will win? Who will be the title holder? Spassky wins, 12.5 to 10.5. Alright, with that being said, let's get into some games. In the first game I bring you is from round 1. We have Boris Spassky with the white pieces and Petrosian with the black. The game in the World Chess Championship begins with the move e4 and c5. And while Boris Spassky is known as one of the greatest closed Sicilian players of all time, we get the move knight to f3, followed by e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and a6, this being the Khan Sicilian. Bishop to d3 is the best way of playing, despite there being others. We have knight to c6, offering a trade of knights, takes. This is looking to play d5, so we have, after short castles, we have d5, knight to d2, and knight to f6, queen to e2, and bishop to e7, b3 looking to fianchetto the dark squared bishop, and we have short castles. Bishop b2 and a5, f4, and g6. Rook to d1, knight to d7, looking to put some contention onto this f6 diagonal. c4, putting more pressure on this d5 pawn, and a4 looking to break on the queen side, and f5 looking to break on the king side. E takes f5, e takes f5, and bishop to f6, offering a trade of bishops. White obliges, and queen to f2, setting up some discoveries. Takes on b3, and rook to a2 creates a pin. Takes on f6, and takes on g6 and takes on g6, with the f-pawn to defend the knight, and h3, trying to prevent anything from coming to the g4 square. Queen to e7, and queen to d4. c5 attacks the queen, queen to f4, and bishop to b7. It's after rook to e1, and queen to g7, we have queen to e3, d4 attacks the queen, queen e6 check, queen to f7, offering a trade of queens. White retreats, defending his knight, and rook to e8 attacks the queen moves to f2, rook takes e1, queen takes e1, and queen e8 offers a trade of queens along the e file. Takes, and bishop to e4. While knight to d6 is an option, and taking would not be great, because of course if you take, we can take, and the c5 pawn is just such a weakness. Rook a5 would come, but after rook to f4, we're going to be putting a bunch of pressure in this position. It's with that being said that after bishop e4 is played, we have the move rook takes d2, and bishop takes b7, knight to d6 attacks the bishop, bishop to d5 check, king to g7, and b4, putting pressure on this backwards pawn and looking to push. After captures and pushes, knight to f5, and we have c6. Rook to c2, putting his rook behind the passed pawn. g4 attacks the knight moves back to d6, and rook to f4, putting pressure on this d4 pawn. e6, rook to d4, putting his rook behind the pawn. Rook to d2, bishop to b3 attacks the rook. Rook takes on c6, and rook takes on d2, knight to e4, rook to d7 check, king to f6, rook takes h7, and rook to b1 check. King g2, knight to c5 attacks the bishop moves to f7, and b3. g5 check, king takes g5, and h4 check, king f6, h5, rook to c2 check, and king to f3. And now we have the move b2, bishop to b1, looking at the b1 square to prevent promotion, takes on h5, and rook to c1, looking to promote. Rook to h6 check, king e5, rook to b6, attacking the b2 pawn and holding promotion. Knight to a4, defends the b2 pawn, attacks the rook moves to e6 with check, king to d4, rook to e4, looks like it wins with a skewer, but it's after king to c5 and takes that we have the move rook to a1. It's in this position here that Spassky resigns. Why? If a move like king to f4 is played, we have the beautiful rook sacrifice, rook takes a2, and after captures, queen to b1, or b1 equals queen. My apologies. It's with that being said that I will be taking you to the next game. Hello and welcome back. With this game, I bring you round 4. After the last 2 games were draws, we have Tigran Petrosian with the white pieces and Boris Spassky with the black pieces. And the game begins with c4, the English opening. It's after e6, d4, and d5, though it transposes into a queen's gambit. It's after knight to c3 and c5, we have a Tarrasch. And it's after takes, knight to f3, knight c6, and g3. Knight to f6, bishop to g2, bishop to e7, short castles, bishop to g5, c takes d4. My apologies. C takes d4, knight takes d4, and h6 attacking the bishop. The bishop moves back to e3, and bishop to g4. Knight to b3, relinquishing pressure of the knights and looking at the c5 square, maybe looking to put the bishop there in the future. Bishop to e6, rook to c1, rook e8, rook e1, queen to d7, and bishop to c5. Rook to c8, saying I want you to trade on my accord. Takes, and e3. Rook to d8, queen to e2, bishop to g4 attacks the queen. F3 is played to attack the bishop, and bishop to f5. Rook to d1 is played, putting some more pressure down this d file. And knight e5, knight to d4 attacks the bishop moves back, and bishop to h3 attacks the rook. The rook moves to c4, and g4 is played. Rook to b4, and b3 to control the c4 square. Knight to c6 is played, offering a trade of knights. and queen to d2 is played. If in this position if black was to take, we would get e takes d4, attacking the queen would move, and then we have the beautiful move knight to a4, looking at this c5 square. With that being said, after the move queen d2 is played, we have the move rook to b6. Knight ce2, looking for this g3 square, and bishop to h7, bishop to g2, and rook e8, knight to g3, takes on d4, and e takes d4. Rook to e6 triple stacks on the e file, takes on e6, and queen takes e6. Rook to c1, taking control of the open file, and bishop to g6. Bishop to g6 was played with the idea to bring this knight backwards and try rerouting the knight to g6 in the future. Bishop to f1, knight h7, queen to f4, and knight to f8. Rook to c5, and bishop to b1 attacks this a2 pawn. a4 is played, and knight to g6 attacks the queen. The queen moves back to d2, and we have queen to f6, putting more pressure on this d4 pawn. King to f2 is played, and now we have knight to f4, c5, and bishop to d3. If we were to take, we would have the move queen to d4. Good job, you hang a rook. These are world champions, of course. So after the move bishop to d3 is played, we have a knight to f5. Queen to g5, and knight to e3. And now we have queen to h4 check, king to g1, and bishop takes f1. It's in this position that Tigran Petrosian resigns. Why? Well, if knight was to take on f1, we would have the beautiful rook to e2. And if the king was to take on f1, queen to h3 check, king to e1 steps into a pin, queen takes f3, knight to g2 is coming, and if instead of e1 we were to move to g1, queen takes f3, and if you'd like to calculate it, there is a checkmate forced in 7. With that being said, let's go on. Going into round 10 of the World Chess Championship, Boris Spassky is leading by 1 point. With that being said, Boris Spassky also has the black pieces, and Tigran Petrosian is looking to tie it up with the white pieces. And Tigran Petrosian begins the game with d4. Knight to f6, c4, and e6. Knight to c3, and bishop to b4, the Nimzo Indian defense. e3 is played. Short castles. Bishop to d3, and b6. Knight to e2, and d5. Short castles, and d takes c4. Bishop takes c4, bishop to b7, f3, c5 breaks in the center, and a3 attacks the bishop. The bishop is going to be trapped in the future, but c takes d4, and hey, doesn't look like the bishop's trapped anymore. But we take on b4. You take my knight, I take the pawn, and knight to c6. Material balance is equal, and b5 attacks the knight. Knight to e5 attacks the bishop moves back to e2, and the queen moves to c7. e4, making this bishop a little bit worse. Rook to d8 attacks the queen moves to e1, and queen to c5 check. Queen to f2, queen to e7, and rook to a3, a rook lift. Knight to e8, bishop to f4 attacks the knight moves back to g6 attacking the bishop moves back to e3, and a knight to d6. Rook to a1, looking at this a7 pawn, Knight to c8 defends the pawn, and bishop to f1. f5 is played. E takes f5 is played. E takes f5 is played. And rook to a4 is played. Rook to e8, looking at this bishop. Bishop to d2. Queen to c5, offering a trade of queens. Queen takes c5 and b takes c5. An isolated pawn has been created, but you have double isolated pawns. But the position is better for white. Rook to c4, attacking the isolated pawn. Rook to e5 defends it, and a knight to a4 is putting even more pressure on the pawn. a6 is played, and knight takes on c5, attacking the bishop on b7. A takes b5 is played, attacking the rook on c4. Knight takes b7. Rook takes a1. Rook takes e8, c8, check. Knight, king to f7, and knight to d8, check. King to e7, and knight to c6. King to d7, knight takes e5, rook takes on c8, but you take on g6, h takes g6, and the pawn structure is much worse, and I have two bishops for the rook. Bishop to c3, and this pawn is practically undefendable. Rook to b1 is played. If a move like rook a7 was to be played, you would take on b5, but rook to b1, king to f2, b4, and takes on g7. It's in this position that Boris Spassky resigns, and Tigran Petrosian has tied up the match in round 10. And the final game I bring you today is the 17th round. Boris Spassky is leading by 2 points, and Boris Spassky has the white pieces. He's basically looking to put away the match at this point. So he begins with e4, c5, knight to f3, e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and a6. Bishop to d3, knight to c6, takes, short castles, d5, knight d2, knight f6, b3, bishop to b4. Holy, we are not watching the first round again. And bishop to b2. a5 is played, and c3 is played. Bishop to e7, c4, breaking in the center, short castles, queen to c2, and h6. a3 is played, bishop to a6, creating a pin on the c4 pawn, even though the bishop's defended. Rook fe1, and we have queen to b6. Takes on d5, c takes d5, c takes d5, bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and rook to d8. A little intermezzo move, knight to c4, queen to a6, creating a pin on the knight, queen to f3, stepping out of the pin while keeping the pawn semi-defended. Of course, you're still going to lose it, and you do with rook takes d5, and rook to d1 offers a trade of rooks. Rook to f5 attacks the queen moves to g3, and rook to g5 attacking the queen moves to c7 attacking the bishop on e7, rook to e8 defends the bishop, and we have bishop takes f6. G takes f6 is played. Now, why? What would happen if you take on f6 with the bishop, which is the better move? h4 could happen, maybe the rook will move to c5, not c5, sorry. h5, g4 is apparently to attack this, but like, I cannot answer to you why Petrosian took. Oh, I put the rook on c5 and it was undefended, wasn't it? I'm an idiot. Like, I still thought the bishop was on e7 for like half a second. I'm so sorry. With that being said, wow, I hung a rook just in the middle of the video. I'm sorry. Rook to d7 is played, attacking the bishop. Rook to c8 is played, attacking the queen. The queen moves to b7, offering a trade. It takes, and king to f8 defends the bishop. a4 is played. Bishop to b5, bishop to b4, attacking the rook on e1. Rook to e3, rook d8, looking at this d1 square, and hey, that's checkmate, right? Unfortunately not. g3. Rook d1 check, king to g2, rook to c5, rook to f3, looking at the f6 pawn, f5, g4 is played, rook to d4, takes on f5, takes on f5. Now we have double isolated pawns and an isolated pawn. Rook to b8 check, king to e7, and rook to e3 check, king to f6, rook to b6 check, king to g7, rook to g3 check, king to f8, and now we have another check, king to e7, rook e3, king f6, ring around the rosy a little bit, going back to f8. It's looking like, oh my god, we might repeat, but we have captures. Now, why did they do this? To reach move 40. Very simply. Takes on h6, f4 is played, and we have rook gh3. The king moves to g7. The rook offers a trade. f3 is played, and king to g3 is played. If we were to take, it really doesn't change too much. White's still better, still up 2, but just didn't. King to g3. Takes on h4, takes on h4, rook to d3, takes on a5, king to g6, and rook to b5, attacking the bishop. Bishop takes on a5, rook takes on a5. We got 2 passed pawns. Come on. Takes on b3, though. Looks like we only have 1. Well, 2. Rook a3, a5, king to g5. We have a6, king to g6, a7, king to g7, and h4. King h7, h5, king g7, h6 check, king to h7, king to f4. It's in this position that Tigran Petrosian resigns and Boris Spassky wins. Of course, we know that he already won the title because of the beginning of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please feel free to request any World Chess Championship if you would like. I'm thinking of doing the Garry Kasparov Anand World Championship. Tell me how you feel about that. Anyways, have a good night.